Hello, I'm Qingxuan Zhang, and I'm from the discussion section A09. So I'm an 18-year-old freshman who is born in Asia, and I'm very curious about my compatriots who came to US for a living few centuries ago. So I pick up the topic of the week 7. Besides, many Asian countries fully take part in globalizations, increasing their economic growth, while some people still disagree with the globalization policy. So I also pick up the topics of the week 10 to help me understand the impact of the globalization in Asia. So here for the section, retrospective analysis. The first one is for the week 7, labor and race-based nationalism, and the concept I choose is racial capitalism. Racial capitalism refers to the systemic exploitation of racialized labor for capital gains. It operates through the artificial ideologies like imperialism, which justify the harsher working conditions for Asian laborers in California and Hawaii. This was illustrated in Bonacci's article, which states, ultimately, the selection of the Asian rather than the Eastern and Southern Europe as the source of the labor for the West comes down to the fact that capital in California and Hawaii could impose the harsher condition on the Asian immigrants than it could on Europeans. The importance for this concept is that this concept reveals how the called upper racial hierarchies sustain the economic growth while marginalizing the specific groups, such as the Asian immigrants. And the aha moment for me is understanding of how the racial ideologies shape the labor systems. It helped me realize that what a harsh situation was happening on Asian immigrants. The example I use is the Chinese labor. The Chinese labor is exploited during the California gold rush, by the time when they were promised a good future. However, the government promoted harsh laws like the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which impressed the systemic oppression on the Chinese immigrants. Bonacci highlights how the very threat of the deportation acted as a curb on the ability of Asian workers to organize together for their rights. So here for the week 10, global capitalism, race, and immigration. So the concept I use is globalization. Globalization refers to the integration of economies and societies on a global scale, which is often facilitated by the capitalism factor. As Lisa Law explains, globalization has historically perpetuated inequalities by favoring Western economies while exploiting labor from the global South. This was illustrated in Law's article, which states, globalization has historically perpetuated inequalities by obscuring the longer history of global contacts and connections. The importance for this is that this concept highlights the systemic nature of the economic inequality and the role of the international agreements. So the aha moment for this chapter is that I realized that although globalization contributes to the economic growth, it leads to the bigger benefits to the Western economies by obscuring the longer history of the global contacts and connections. So the example I use is that the lecture on the naked laborers in the border towns revealed how the U.S. corporation benefit from the cheap labor around abroad while undermining the local economies. Then for the last section, personal impact reflection, I choose the topic of the labor and race-based nationalism. My personal reflection is that I learned about how the racial ideologies shaped the labor system in the U.S. It deepened my understanding of the system racism. It has encouraged me to critically examine the modern labor practices and advocate for more equitable policies in my community and future career. Thanks for listening.